The next morning was cold and strangely quiet. Ethan barely slept, his thoughts heavy with what he had seen. A flying craft in the distance, hovering low, searching by dawn. He went out to the fields pretending to check his crops, but really, he was looking for any sign that the strangers had landed nearby. The air still shimmered faintly where the ship had passed, as if it left behind invisible heat. His heart pounded faster. He knew they were close. Back at the barn, Lyra and her daughter stayed hidden under the trapdoor. He had given them water and food, whispering through the floorboards. "Stay quiet, I'll handle it." She only nodded. Holding her little one close by mid-morning, the sound of engines returned, low and humming, this time followed by voices, metallic, emotionless. "Scanning Sector 12, one said. No life signs detected other than human livestock." Ethan froze behind his tractor, peeking through the tall grass. 3 figures in armored suits moved across his property, their helmets sleek and glassy, each holding a small device that blinked green with every step. He tried to steady his breathing. One wrong move, and they'd find the hidden barn. One of them turned suddenly toward the Coop. "Wait!" The soldier's voice echoed through the helmet. "Unidentified residue, alien origin." Ethan's heart dropped. They were scanning the very place where he had found Lyra last night. Thinking fast, he grabbed his wrench and walked toward them, pretending to look annoyed. "Hey!" he shouted. "What are you people doing on my land?" The soldiers turned, their visors glowing faintly red. One of them stepped forward. "This property is under temporary galactic investigation. Please step aside, human." Ethan forced a confused smile. "Galactic what now? You all with the government?" he asked, trying to sound stupid enough to be ignored. The soldier hesitated. "You are not authorized to question," they replied. Turning back to their scanner, Ethan moved closer, scratching his head. "You're spooking my chickens. Mind explaining why you're dressed like astronauts?" The soldier's scanner beeped louder, then suddenly dimmed. "False reading," the voice said. "Residue exposure minimal." The team turned away, starting toward the main road. Ethan's legs nearly gave out from relief, but before leaving, one of the soldiers looked at him closely and asked, "Have you seen anyone unusual in this area?" Ethan forced a nervous laugh. "Only me, my chickens, and the storm," he said. Wiping sweat from his forehead, the soldier's visor shimmered, maybe analyzing his heartbeat. After a long silence, the soldier finally said, "You're kinda unpredictable," and then turned away. Once they were gone, Ethan rushed back to the barn, opening the trapdoor. "It's all right, they're gone," he whispered. Lyra's glowing eyes looked up at him, full of fear and gratitude. Her daughter clung to her side, coughing softly. "They are close," she said. "They can track our energy for miles." Ethan nodded. "Then we'll have to find another hiding place." Lyra looked exhausted. "I can mask our presence for a few hours," she said quietly, pulling out a small silver cube that flickered with light. "But I'll need rest after." Ethan watched as she pressed it to the ground. A faint wave rippled through the air, making everything around them hum softly. "It bends signals," she explained weakly. "For now they won't find us." He sat beside her, handing her a cup of water. "You saved my life back there," she whispered. "If they found me here, they would have killed you too." Ethan looked away. "Maybe," he said, "but I couldn't just hand you over." "Not after seeing that little one's face." She smiled faintly. "Humans are strange," she said softly. "So full of fear, yet capable of kindness." He chuckled quietly. "Yeah, we're complicated like that." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the world outside seemed calm again, but Ethan knew it was only the eye of the storm. Deep down, he sensed this was far from over. He didn't realize yet that by sheltering one alien mother and her child, he had just made himself part of an interstellar manhunt that could change Earth's fate forever. Export message as PDF night fell quietly, but Ethan couldn't rest. Every creak of the barn made him flinch. Every gust of wind sounded like approaching engines. Inside the dim light, Lyra sat beside her sleeping daughter, her silver skin faintly glowing as she stared at the dirt floor. Ethan finally spoke. "You said they're after you because you betrayed them," he said. "What did you really do?" Lyra looked up slowly, her blue eyes tired but sharp. "I didn't betray them," she said in a trembling voice. "I betrayed what they became." Ethan frowned, confused. She continued softly. "I worked for the Galactic Fleet, a science division that studied planets like yours. At first it was peaceful research, but then they changed. They began turning it into weapons." She touched her chest, as if remembering pain. "They found that humans are Different. Your strength. Your ability to survive wounds. Even your emotions. They wanted to use that. Ethan's brows furrowed. Use it how? He asked. Lyra hesitated. To build soldiers who feel pain but never stop fighting, they called it Project Resolve. Ethan's stomach tightened. And you were helping them? He asked quietly. Lyra nodded, shame flashing across her face. At first, yes, but I didn't understand what they truly planned. Her hands trembled as she continued. When I realized they were capturing humans from border colonies to experiment on, I destroyed my research and escaped. Her daughter shifted in her sleep, whispering softly in an alien language. Lyra brushed a hand over the child's hair. I took my daughter and ran. We crashed during the storm, she said, her voice cracking. Now they want to erase me. And anyone who helps me. Ethan leaned back against a wooden post, running a hand through his hair. You're saying they're hunting you just because you tried to save people, he said. Sounds like they're worse than the monsters they study. Lyra gave a faint, sad smile. That is why I ran to a planet like this. A world where people still have hearts, he sighed. You overestimate us sometimes, but deep down, he knew she was right. Not everyone would have helped her. Maybe not even him if he hadn't seen her holding that trembling child. Outside, the rain started again, soft and steady. Ethan got up and grabbed a small blanket from a crate, tossing it over Lyra's shoulders. You should rest, he said. You look like you haven't slept in days. She looked surprised. You keep helping us, she said quietly. Why? Ethan paused. Because I can't stand seeing a mother beg for her child's life. That's reason enough. Her eyes softened, glowing faintly brighter. Where I come from, she said gently. Humans were spoken of as primitive, loud, emotional, unpredictable. She smiled faintly. But they were wrong about one thing. Ethan tilted his head. What's that? He asked. They never understood your compassion, she said. They think it's weakness, but I think it's your greatest power. Ethan looked down, trying to hide the small smile tugging at his lips. For a moment, silence filled the barn. The only sound was the rain tapping against the roof. Lyra finally whispered, If they find us, they will kill you too. Ethan looked at her firmly. Then they'll have to go through me first, he said without hesitation. She stared at him for a long time, her eyes glimmering with something between fear and respect. You don't even know what you're up against, she said. Doesn't matter, he replied. You're not alone now. Lyra nodded slowly, for the first time letting a small tear roll down her silver cheek. She looked at her daughter, then at Ethan. Thank you, human, she whispered. You gave us more than shelter. You gave us hope. And as thunder rolled far in the distance again, Ethan knew the peace wouldn't last somewhere beyond the clouds. The hunters were already planning their next move, and soon they would return, not just for her, but for anyone who dared to protect her. Export messages PDF. Morning came soft and golden, the first peaceful light in days. Ethan stood outside the barn, watching the mist rise from the fields. His body ached, his clothes were torn, but he didn't care. The night's battle felt like a dream, except the scorch marks in the dirt and the smoking wrecks of alien machines were real. Inside, Lyra rested, her breathing slow but steady. Her daughter sat beside her, humming softly in that strange, melodic alien tone. The air inside the barn glowed faintly from the child's small hands as she healed her mother. Ethan watched quietly from the doorway, feeling something he hadn't felt in years, and hope. When Lyra finally opened her eyes, her voice was weak but calm. Is it morning? She asked. Ethan nodded. You scared me half to death last night, he said. Trying to smile, she sat up slowly, her silver skin catching the soft sunlight. I thought we were finished, she said, but my daughter, she saved me. She reached out and stroked the child's hair gently, pride glowing in her tired eyes. Ethan knelt beside them. They won't stop, will they? He asked. Lyra shook her head slowly. No, she whispered, but they'll think twice before coming here again. The shockwave we created disrupted their scanners. Earth might be invisible to them for a while. Ethan let out a breath of relief. Good, maybe that's enough time for you to rest. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her expression soft but serious. You risked your life for us, she said quietly. Why? You could have turned us in and saved yourself, Ethan shrugged. Because that's not who I am, he said simply. You needed help and I was here, she smiled faintly. Humans, she whispered, always choosing heart over logic. Outside, The air was calm. Birds began to return, flying across the sunrise as if nothing had happened. Ethan walked to the ruined ship fragments scattered near the edge of his land. Strange symbols shimmered faintly on the metal. He kicked one gently. "Well," he muttered, "that'll be fun to explain if the neighbors come snooping." Behind him, Lyra and her daughter stepped into the light, the little one's eyes wide with wonder at the birds. She reached out, laughing softly. "They're so small," she said. "And free." Ethan smiled. "Yeah, that's Earth for you. Messy, loud, but free." Lyra turned to him, her expression turning bittersweet. "We can't stay here forever," she said. "When my strength returns, we'll have to leave if we stay too long." "They'll find us again." Ethan looked down, trying to hide the heaviness in his chest. "I figured," he said quietly. "You'll go back to the stars." Lyra stepped closer. "But we'll never forget this place," she said. "Or you." She reached into the folds of her damaged suit and pulled out a small crystal. Not the one she'd given him before, but a different one, glowing with soft blue light. She pressed it into his hand. "This will call to our kind," she said softly. "If humans ever face what we did, use it and we'll come." Ethan looked at the crystal, feeling its warmth pulse in his palm. "You're serious?" he asked. "Your people would answer a human's call?" Lyra nodded. "You protected one of us when no one would. That makes you part of us now." The little girl tugged at Ethan's sleeve, smiling. "Goodbye, Farmer Ethan," she said shyly. "Thank you for saving my mama." He knelt down and smiled back. "Take care of her, all right?" She nodded firmly, her small hand glowing softly as she touched his cheek, leaving a faint silver mark like a tear of light. As the sun climbed higher, a low hum filled the air. Lyra's emergency beacon finally activating, a beam of blue light rose into the sky. The air shimmered, and in seconds they began to fade, their forms dissolving into particles of light. Lyra's last words echoed through the quiet morning. "Humans have more power than they know. Protect it." Then they were gone. The light vanished and the world fell silent again. Ethan stood alone in his field, clutching the glowing crystal in his hand. The coop behind him broken, the barn quiet. The sky wide and endless above. He looked up, smiling faintly. "Safe travels, Lyra," he whispered. The wind carried his words upward. Across the clouds, across the stars, and somewhere far beyond Earth, an alien mother and her child remembered the human farmer who gave them shelter from the rain. And in that bond, two worlds were no longer strangers, but family. Export message as PDF. Days passed quietly, but an uneasy calm hung over the farm. Ethan tried to act normal, feeding his chickens, repairing fences, pretending life was ordinary, yet every sound, a distant hum, a flicker of light in the night sky, made his heart race. He knew they would come back, and this time, they wouldn't leave without finding Lyra inside the barn. Lyra was teaching her daughter how to breathe Earth's air slowly, using a small glowing crystal that hummed gently. "It helps her lungs adapt," she explained softly. "But it's losing power." Ethan knelt beside them. "Is there any way to recharge it?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "Not here. Your planet's energy is different, too unstable for our tech." She looked worried, her daughter's breathing shallow and weak. That afternoon, Ethan heard the sound again. A deep rumble from the sky. He rushed outside and saw it. 3 dark ships cutting through the clouds like shadows, moving in perfect formation. His stomach dropped. "They've found us," he whispered. He sprinted back to the barn. "Lyra, we need to hide now." She looked up sharply, her face pale. "They've traced the signal," she said, grabbing her daughter and the half-drained crystal. Ethan pulled open the trapdoor again, but Lyra shook her head. "They'll scan below ground this time. We need somewhere else." Ethan thought fast, his eyes darting toward the old storm shelter near the orchard. "Follow me," he said, grabbing a flashlight. The 3 ran through the wet fields, their feet splashing in puddles. The sky glowed faintly blue from the ships above, searchlights sweeping across the land. The air buzzed with static. Lyra stumbled, clutching her child tight. Ethan caught her arm. "Almost there, keep moving," he said. They reached the shelter just as a beam of light cut across the field behind them. Ethan yanked open the metal hatch. "Get in," he said. Lyra hesitated. "What about you?" Ethan shook his head. "I'll lead them away." She grabbed his wrist. "No, they'll kill you," he smiled faintly. "I've been through wars before, I'll manage." He shut the hatch gently as she climbed down, then ran toward the main house, grabbing an old rifle from the porch. He didn't plan to fight them, not really, but he needed to buy her time. The ships landed silently in his field, their engines whispering like wind. From each ship, figures stepped out, tall, armored, glowing faintly blue. One of them spoke through a voice amplifier. "Human, you are harboring fugitives. Surrender them and you will be spared." Ethan stood firm near his porch, rain dripping from his hat. "You're trespassing on private land," he said loudly, "and I don't take kindly to bullies." The leader raised his hand. A pulse of blue light shot from his palm. Striking the ground near Ethan, dirt exploded in a flash. Ethan flinched but didn't back down. "Last warning," the alien said. "Where are they?" Ethan spat mud from his mouth. "Maybe you should check the coop again," he said with a smirk. The aliens spread out, scanning every corner of the property. Inside the shelter, Lyra held her daughter close, tears streaming silently down her face. She could feel every vibration above, every hum of energy. She whispered a prayer in her language, hoping Ethan would survive long enough for them to escape. Outside, one of the aliens shouted, "No life signs. Human lied." The leader turned toward the house. "Eliminate him," he ordered coldly. Ethan's heart pounded. He gripped his rifle tighter. But before they could fire, the sky flashed white. A thunderclap of energy burst from behind the barn. It wasn't lightning, it was Lyra. She had come out, her body glowing brighter than ever before, her hands raised, blue energy swirling around her like a storm. "You will not harm him," she shouted, her voice echoing across the field. The aliens hesitated, their scanners sparking. Ethan stared in awe. The woman who once hid in his coop now stood defiant against soldiers from the stars. The ground trembled under her power, and for the first time the hunters stepped back, unsure if they were facing a fugitive or something far stronger. Export messages PDF. The night sky burned with blue light as Lyra stood between Ethan and the alien soldiers. Her body surrounded by a faint electric aura. The rain hissed as it struck her glowing skin, every drop turning to mist before touching the ground. The soldiers raised their weapons, unsure. Their leader barked orders in a sharp metallic tongue, but none dared fire first. Ethan could barely breathe. The scene looked unreal. The quiet alien mother he had sheltered now looked like a goddess of lightning, her eyes glowing fierce and bright. "I warned you," she said, her voice trembling with both fear and strength. "Leave this place," one of the soldiers stepped forward. "You have no authority to command us," he said coldly. "You are a traitor." Lyra raised her hand. A pulse of blue light shot from her palm, knocking the soldier backward into the mud. His armor crackled, sparking from within. She didn't kill him. She just made her point. "I don't want to fight," she said, "but I will if I must." The other soldiers took aim. The sound of energy charging filled the air. Ethan ran to her side. "Lyra, stop, they'll shoot you," he shouted. She turned to him for a brief moment, her expression softening. "You helped me when no one else would," she said quietly. "Now it's my turn to protect you." Before he could answer, the soldiers fired. Beams of light cut through the rain, hitting the ground and trees with blinding flashes. Lyra lifted both hands, forming a shimmering barrier around them. The blast bent away like water against stone. The energy rippled outward, lighting up the entire field. Ethan shielded his eyes. "How long can you hold that?" he yelled over the noise. "Not long," she gasped, her body shaking. "Their weapons drain my energy faster than I can recover." From the shelter nearby, Lyra's daughter suddenly pushed open the hatch. "Mother!" she cried weakly, her tiny hand glowing faintly blue. Ethan turned. "No, stay there!" But the little girl ran forward, her small feet splashing through the mud. She reached Lyra and placed her hand on her mother's arm. The glow around them pulsed brighter. Ethan stepped back as the energy field expanded, swallowing the entire yard in light. The soldiers stumbled, their scanners malfunctioning. One shouted, "Overload detected, retreat!" But it was too late. The light burst outward like a shockwave, sending them flying back toward their ships. When the glow faded, the field was silent. The soldiers lay motionless in the mud, their armor flickering weakly. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted. Her daughter held onto her tightly. "Mother, please, wake up," the little one whispered. Ethan rushed to them, catching Lyra before she collapsed fully, her silver skin dim and pale. "You did it," he said, his voice shaking. "They're gone." She looked up weakly, her eyes dimming. "Not for long," she whispered. "They'll send more." Ethan looked toward the ships. Two were sparking. Half buried in the soil, the third one slowly lifted off, its engines whining, retreating into the clouds. The little girl looked up at Ethan, tears shining on her glowing cheeks. Will they come again? She asked softly. Ethan glanced at the storm-torn sky. Maybe, he said, but next time we'll be ready. He helped Lyra stand, supporting her as they made their way back toward the barn. Inside, he laid her down gently on the hay. Wrapping her in a blanket, she smiled faintly. You should have left me, she whispered. You don't understand the danger. Ethan shook his head. I'm not the kind of man who runs, he said quietly. And you're not the kind of mother who gives up. Her hand trembled as she reached out, placing a small glowing shard in his palm. Keep this, she said weakly. If they come again, it will protect you. Ethan looked down at the shard. It's light, warm, and alive. You rest, he said. I'll take care of things here. As dawn broke, the storm faded. The fields glistened under the morning sun. The enemy had retreated for now, but both human and alien knew peace would not last. Still, for that brief moment, the earth was quiet. And inside one small barn on a forgotten farm, a fragile bond between two worlds had already begun to change everything. Export message as PDF. Rain fell hard that night, the kind of storm that turned quiet farms into roaring seas. Ethan pulled his coat tight as he ran through the mud toward his chicken coop. Lightning flashing above the fields, he could hear the chickens clucking in fear, their wings flapping wildly inside the small wooden shelter. When he opened the coop door, he froze. It wasn't just the chickens inside. A figure crouched in the corner, hidden beneath a torn blanket. For a moment, Ethan thought it was a thief, but then the lightning struck again, and he saw her face. Her skin shimmered faintly silver, and her eyes glowed soft blue. She looked frightened, not dangerous. In her arms, a small child lay trembling, wrapped in a thin cloth that looked soaked through from the rain. Ethan's breath caught. What in the world? He whispered. The woman looked up quickly. Please, she said in a trembling voice, then don't be afraid. We just needed shelter from the rain. Her accent was strange, her words careful, as if English was not her first language. He took a cautious step closer. The chickens rustled nervously around them. You're not from around here, are you? He asked quietly. She shook her head, holding the child tighter. We mean no harm, we were lost. We just needed somewhere dry. Her eyes pleaded with him. Ethan didn't know what to do. Calling the police meant questions he couldn't answer. Helping her could mean danger, yet something in her voice, something motherly, desperate, made his heart soften. The child's tiny hand reached out, fingers faintly glowing in the dim light. You're freezing, Ethan said after a long moment. He pulled off his jacket and handed it to her. Stay here. I'll bring something warm. The woman looked surprised. You're helping us? She asked. You could have thrown us out. Ethan sighed. I'm not the kind of man to leave a child out in a storm. He hurried back to the farmhouse, grabbing a blanket, some bread, and a cup of milk. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from curiosity. Who were they? Aliens? Escaped experiment? He didn't know, but when he returned, the woman had pulled the child close. Whispering softly in a language he couldn't understand, Ethan set the blanket around them. You can stay until the storm ends, he said quietly. She nodded gratefully. Thank you. Human, she murmured before quickly correcting herself. Thank you, sir, Ethan blinked. Realizing what she had said, he stepped back, looking at her closely. You called me human, he said slowly. What does that make you? She looked away, silent for a long moment. Finally, she whispered. We are from the stars. We didn't mean to come here. Our ship crashed. She looked down at her child. I only wanted to keep her safe. Thunder rolled again. Shaking the coop, Ethan leaned against the doorway, his mind spinning. An alien mother right here on his farm, and she looked more scared than he was. Then you'd better stay hidden, he muttered. People around here panic over city folks. They won't handle this well. She nodded, clutching her child. I understand. Thank you. As the storm raged through the night, Ethan sat on a wooden stool, watching over them in silence. The child slowly drifted to sleep. The woman's silver skin shimmered faintly in the candlelight. She looked peaceful for the first time. Outside, the wind howled, but inside that small coop there was warmth, a strange calm between two worlds that should never have met. Ethan didn't know it yet, but this single act of kindness would change both their lives forever. Export message as PDF. The storm had passed, but the air still smelled of wet earth and smoke. Ethan stood by the window of his small farmhouse, watching the sunrise break through heavy clouds, his mind replaying what he saw the night before. a silver-skinned woman hiding in his chicken coop with a frightened child. He carried a tray of warm food, bread, milk, and a few eggs, and walked back to the coop. When he opened the door, the woman stood up quickly, holding her daughter close, her glowing blue eyes wide with fear. Ethan raised his hands. "It's all right. I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly, setting the tray down. The little girl peeked from behind her mother's arm. Her hair shimmered faintly like strands of moonlight. She looked weak, pale and cold. Ethan smiled gently. "You must be hungry," he said. "The storm's over, you can rest," the woman hesitated, then slowly nodded. "Thank you." "I didn't think any human would help us," she whispered. Ethan leaned against the wall. "You said last night your ship crashed," he said. "Are there others?" The woman looked down, her eyes darkened. "No," she murmured. "They are gone. Only we survived." Her voice trembled with pain. "We were being hunted." "Hunted?" Ethan repeated, his stomach tightened. She looked at him, fear flashing in her glowing eyes. "There are soldiers searching for us. Not from your world, from mine," she explained. "They think I betrayed them." Ethan frowned. "Betrayed them how?" She didn't answer at first, just stared at her daughter. "My name is Lyra," she said quietly. "I was a scientist. I studied human biology for the Galactic Fleet." Ethan blinked. "You studied humans?" She nodded. "Yes. We were ordered to find out why humans survive so many things. Radiation, disease, hunger, pain. But I refused to let them use what I learned to harm your kind." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "So you escaped," he said slowly. She nodded again. "I destroyed the data and fled. I only wanted my daughter to be free." Her voice cracked. "They will not stop until we are found." Ethan looked outside. The morning light touched the wet grass, but he could already see faint trails in the mud. Deep footprints not made by his boots. "Someone else has been here," he muttered, his heart pounded. "We need to move you somewhere safer." He guided them to an old barn behind the farmhouse, where he used to store tools and hay. "No one comes here," he said. "You can rest for now." Lyra helped her daughter lie down on a pile of soft straw. The little one coughed, a faint shimmer of blue dust escaping her lips. Ethan stepped closer. "Is she sick?" "She's weak," Lyra whispered. "Our atmosphere is different. Her lungs are not used to this air." She looked desperate. "I need to find a way to make her stronger." Ethan thought for a moment, then said, "I have medicine, humankind, maybe it can help." She looked uncertain. "Our biology is not the same." "Still," he said. "It's better than nothing." She hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you, Ethan," she said, her voice soft but full of emotion. Hours later, as the sun rose high, Ethan went outside to fix the fences. When he looked toward the distant road, he froze. A black vehicle hovered above the ground, silent, smooth, and nothing like human technology. He rushed back to the barn, whispering, "Lyra, they're here." She grabbed her daughter and pulled her close, her eyes sharp with fear. "We must hide," she said quickly. Ethan opened a trapdoor under the barn floor, leading to an old storage space. "Go down there. And don't make a sound," he said firmly. As they climbed down, the hum of engines grew louder, dust trembling off the walls. Ethan closed the trapdoor, covering it with hay. His heart pounded as the shadow of the alien ship passed over his land. He whispered to himself, "What have I gotten into?" Not realizing that his act of kindness had already drawn him into a war far greater than he could imagine. Export message as PDF.